Good morning. We're ready to start the next step of growing some greens in your windowsill. Yesterday, we soaked some seeds in water, and you'll notice that this morning these are a little bigger. They've soaked up some of that water overnight. If you haven't done that part yet, go back and watch the previous video to get started with growing some greens in your windowsill in about 7 to 10 days. These are pea seeds that we have here. We also yesterday put a gallon of potting mix as well as 4 cups of water into this bag. Again, that was part of the video yesterday, so if you didn't do that part, just go back and watch it. But you can see here, I'll hold it a little closer to the camera, you can see that the soil has all been moistened now. So we will not have to water our seeds today whenever we get planting. The other things you'll need today are a newspaper. I just have one section, not the full section, but kind of 2 sides here, and I'll show you what we'll do with that. And I have some compost I'm going to put in the bottom of my trays that I'm going to grow in. If you have it, that's great. This is a really rich soil with lots of nutrients. I'm going to put it in the bottom because that's where the roots are going to grow for our plants. If you don't have this, we can just use the soil that you've pre-moistened and your plants will grow just fine. So the first thing we're going to do is fold and soak our newspaper. So you have your full section of the newspaper here, just 2 sheets of it and on the inside pieces. And we're going to start by folding it in thirds. So you fold one side over, give it a nice crease, fold the other side over, and what you want this to be is a slightly bigger than your container. So I'm going to grow in this 6x3 small container. So I wanted to make sure that this is just a little bit wider than the container that I'm going to grow in. So just a little wider and also a little longer. So as you fold, then you'll fold one side in and the other side in. And then you're going to soak this in just regular tap water. And I have some of them soaking already. So you see that this is the final folds. There's several layers there. We're going to soak this and lay it right on top of the seeds at the end, and that will help to keep our seeds moist. So you can see that this newspaper is a little bit longer than the container that I'm going to plant in. So if you have a round container, it doesn't have to be a round full, just make it a little larger square than the container you're going to use. All right, so we're going to get started with planting. Have our soil, pre-moistened soil. We have our seeds that are pre-soaked overnight. So mine were planted were soaked around 7 o'clock last night, and it's almost 11 o'clock today. They can go up to 24 hours. They can actually go a little longer. Even if you see them, you leave them a really long time and you forgot about them and you see them starting to sprout in your jar, you can still go ahead and plant them. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. There's some flexibility in how long they soak in the water here. So I'm just going to pour off the water, grab the seeds into my strainer here, and just let them sit on the bowl. First thing I'm going to do is get my container. So I have my container here. I'm going to sprinkle about a tablespoon, hefty tablespoon of this compost into the bottom of the container. You can see here. And we're putting in the bottom again because that's where the roots are going to grow. So as they grow down, put a little extra, just kind of cover the bottom lightly. So as those seeds grow their roots down, all of the roots are going to collect along the bottom of this tray. And so as they do that, we want them to have lots of good nutrients as they grow. On top of that, you're going to sprinkle your moistened potting soil right on top of it. It should be nice and loose, and it feels wet to my fingers. It feels moist. It's not soaked, but it's definitely moist. And so you should have a nice moist environment for your seeds to grow. All right, we don't want to fill it all the way to the top. I'm going to leave a little bit of room in the top and maybe put a little too much in there. Take some of that out. You might make a little mess, get your fingers dirty, and that's totally fine. So spread it out until there's about 1/4 to 1/2 inch on top of your tray, still open, because remember, we have to get your seeds in here too, okay? So now we have compost in the bottom, potting soil, pre-moistened on top of that, and some space. The last thing we're gonna do is take your seeds. You should have about a tablespoon of seeds per tray. And I'm going to sprinkle about 1/2 of these seeds onto the tray and just kind of spread them out over top. Now, the way we're going to plant here is really close together so that the seeds will grow their greens very close together here. Okay. They are touching, you want them touching, but not overlapping in your tray. Okay, so you don't want them lying on top of each other, but you can see that they're going to be really snug and close together. I like to think about the seeds kind of being friends with each other in the tray. So you can see they're covering almost the whole surface of your container here. Now, this is not how you'd plant them if you wanted to grow peas from these seeds in your garden. But for this, we just want those little baby plants. They're only going to be a few inches high, and then we're going to cut them and harvest them and add them to salads and sandwiches. So in this environment, you just want, they don't need as much space to grow. All right, the last step is to take the moistened newspaper. So these are ones I've already soaked. I have a moistened newspaper here. I'm going to squeeze it out just a little bit. Okay, and remember, we're going to lay this right down over top, okay? And then just kind of push it in and fold it up so that the sides fold over, all of the sides. And this newspaper is going to do two things. It is going to keep our seeds in the dark, and it's going to keep them moist. So we have, I don't know, I have 5 or 6 layers of newspaper here, and they're all wet. So it's going to keep our seeds in the dark, but it's also going to keep them moist. The last thing you want to do in this stage is take this container that's now covered with that moistened newspaper and find a warm, dark place for it to sit for 4 days. So to recap these steps, compost in the bottom, potting soil on top of that, leaving about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Lay your seeds right on top. I used peas. And then take your folded, moistened, totally soaked newspaper, fold it right into your container. And you'll see that as your seeds start to grow, they will start to grow and sprout in the darkness. They are going to grow up into this, and they will, over time, start to push this newspaper up. They're so strong that they will start to push the newspaper up. So I can't wait to get started with growing. I'm going to go find a warm, dark place for these seeds to grow, and I'm going to leave them alone for 4 days. So check back in 4 days. We'll have a new video for you to show you what to do next as we take your tray to the windowsill. So 4 days in the darkness. You can peek at them, but try not to put them in any direct sunlight yet. Happy growing!